My name is Alina Carter. I was 18 the day my stepmother smiled at me and asked me to sign away $500,000 my mother left behind. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't threaten me. She just slid the papers across the table like it was the most normal thing in the world and said, "Family shares everything, sweetheart." My father stood behind her, silent, watching, waiting for me to agree. And in that moment, I understood something I should have realized a long time ago. This wasn't a request, it was a plan. A plan that started long before my mother died. And what they didn't know was that my mother had already seen it coming. But before I tell you what happened next, if you've ever had someone smile in your face while trying to take everything from you, I want you to stay with me. Because this story isn't just about money, it's about what happens when someone underestimates the one person they thought was powerless. My mom died on a Thursday morning. It was raining, soft, steady rain that tapped against the hospital window like the world was trying not to be too loud about it. Her name was Evelyn Carter. She was 45, a high school literature teacher who believed books could save people. And maybe they did, because they saved me. She was the kind of woman who remembered birthdays of her students, who stayed after school for kids no one else noticed, who believed kindness wasn't optional, it was necessary. Cancer didn't change that, it just slowed her down. 2 years, that's how long she fought. 2 years of chemo, hospital visits, quiet nights where she pretended everything was normal for my sake. But I saw it. I saw the way she winced when she thought I wasn't looking, the way her hands trembled when she held a cup of tea, the way she started writing things down more often, lists, notes, plans. At the time, I thought she was just trying to stay organized. I didn't realize she was preparing for me. The last week she barely spoke, but the night before she passed, she pulled me close and whispered something I didn't fully understand. Everything you need is already protected, don't let them convince you otherwise. Them? I didn't ask who she meant, I didn't think I had to. I just nodded and told her I understood. Even though I didn't. Not yet. My father didn't come to the hospital. Not once. Not during those 2 years. Not when she lost her hair. Not when she stopped teaching. Not even at the end. He sent a message the next day. "Sorry for your loss." That's how I knew. Whatever we used to be as a family was already gone. The funeral was small, quiet, just a few of her colleagues, two neighbors, and me. And then they arrived. My father and his wife, Danielle Carter. She wore black, but not the kind of black you wear when you're grieving. The kind you wear when you want to look good in pictures. She didn't cry, didn't say a word to me. Just stood beside my father like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. She didn't, but she acted like she did. And that was the beginning of everything. 3 days later, I moved into their house. I didn't have a choice. Legally, my father was my guardian. And apparently, biology matters more than presence. The house was already full. Danielle had a daughter, Sophie, 17, and a son, Ethan, 14. Their rooms were fully furnished, decorated, comfortable. Mine? A spare storage room at the end of the hallway. A single bed, no closet, no window, just a lamp and a door that didn't fully close. I didn't complain because I already knew complaining wouldn't change anything. The first week, Danielle didn't say much to me. She watched, observed, measured, like she was trying to figure out exactly who I was and what I was worth. Then one night at dinner she finally spoke, casually, like it was just conversation. "Your mom left you something, right?" I didn't answer immediately. My father looked at me, expecting. "Yeah," I said, "it's in a trust." Danielle smiled, not warm, calculated. "Trusts can be adjusted," she said. "We looked into it." We, that word again. That meant this wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. I nodded slowly. "It's not that simple." She leaned forward slightly. "It never is, sweetheart. but family makes things simple. I picked up my plate, rinsed it, put it away, and walked back to my room without another word. Behind me, I heard her whisper, "She's going to be a problem." That night, I opened the only thing I had left from my mom, a small wooden box. Inside, her bracelet, a few old photos, and a folded piece of paper, a name, and a number. Margaret Holloway, attorney at law. I stared at it for a long time. Then I whispered, "Mom, what did you already know?" 2 weeks later, I found the answer, and it wasn't what I expected. It was worse. I came downstairs that morning and saw papers on the kitchen table, official ones, highlighted, prepared. Danielle was making coffee. My father was already dressed for work. I picked up the top page, read the heading, then read it again. Petition for financial guardianship. My name was on it, so was my father's and Danielle's. I looked up slowly. "You're trying to control my trust?" My father stepped forward. "It's just to help manage things until you're older." "I'm 18. You're still inexperienced." Danielle smiled again. "We're just protecting you." "No, you're not. You're trying to access it," I said. She didn't deny it. That's when I knew. This wasn't about helping me. This was about taking control. That same day, I went to the one place I felt safe, the public library, sat in the back corner, and called the number my mom left. She answered on the second ring, "Margaret Holloway." My voice shook slightly. "My name is Alzina Carter. My mom was Evelyn Carter." Silence. "Then I've been expecting your call." Saturday morning I met her. Her office was small, but she wasn't. Sharp eyes, calm voice, the kind of woman who didn't need to raise her tone to be taken seriously. She opened a folder, thick, organized, prepared, just like my mom would have done. "Your mother set up an irrevocable trust," she said. I blinked. "That means it cannot be altered, not by your father, not by his wife, not by any court." I exhaled. For the first time in weeks. "So they can't touch it?" "No," she paused, then added, "unless you let them." Then she pulled something out, a sealed envelope. My mother's handwriting, my name wasn't on it, my father's was. He was meant to hear this only if necessary. I held it carefully, like it mattered, because it did. That night, I came home and found all my mom's things in a trash bag in the garage, her photos, her jewelry, her memories, thrown away like they meant nothing, like she meant nothing. I stood there, holding that bag, and something inside me changed. Not anger, not sadness, something colder, clearer, stronger. I walked back inside. Danielle was on the couch, watching TV, relaxed, comfortable, like she hadn't just crossed a line she could never uncross. I stood in front of her and said, "You can take my room." She looked up. "You can take this house." Her expression shifted. "But you don't get to erase my mother." Silence. Then she laughed. "You're being dramatic." "No, I wasn't. I was done. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to fight the way they expected. I was going to wait, because my mother didn't just leave me money. She left me something far more dangerous, a plan. The house didn't explode after that night. It got quieter. And somehow that was worse. Danielle stopped pretending to be polite. She didn't raise her voice anymore, didn't argue, didn't even mention the trust directly. Instead, she shifted tactics. She started turning everyone else against me, subtly, strategically, like someone who knew exactly how pressure works when it comes from all directions at once. The first call came from my grandmother. "Alina," she said, her voice already heavy with disappointment, "your father told me you're refusing to help your family." I stood in the kitchen staring at the sink. "I'm not refusing anything. I legally can't access the trust." There was a pause. Then talk to the lawyer and fix it." That's when I realized something important. They weren't confused, they were choosing not to understand. I'm not changing anything, I said calmly. Her tone hardened. Your mother would be ashamed of this behavior. I didn't respond immediately because that was Danielle, not my grandmother. I have to go, I said and ended the call. The messages didn't stop. Aunts, uncles, people who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly had opinions about my responsibility, my attitude, my duty. Family helps family. Don't be selfish, it's just money. Funny how it's always just money when it belongs to someone else. At school, I stopped talking to people unless I had to. At home, I stayed in my room, and at the library, I started thinking, not emotionally, strategically. Because if there was one thing my mother taught me, it was this: don't react, prepare. 3 days later, I found something that changed everything. It was in the kitchen drawer, the messy one. Takeout menus, batteries, random receipts, and one envelope. Official bank letterhead, addressed to Margaret Holloway's office, but copied to our house. That alone was strange. I opened it, read it once, then again, then a third time just to be sure I wasn't misunderstanding. Request denied. That's what stood out first. Then the details. A request had been made to access my trust. The caller had identified herself as Danielle Carter, legal guardian. My grip tightened around the paper. She had tried to get into my account, pretending to be me, pretending to have authority she didn't have. This wasn't manipulation anymore. This was fraud. And suddenly, everything made sense. The pressure, the timing, the family conversations. They weren't hoping I'd agree. They were trying to force me into a position where I had no choice. But they made one mistake. They assumed I wouldn't look. I took photos of everything: the letter, the envelope, the date. Then I put it back exactly where I found it, closed the drawer, and walked out like nothing had happened. That night, I emailed Margaret, no long explanation, just the photos and one line. She tried to access it. She replied in less than an hour. Do not confront them, do not mention this. I'm preparing the next step. Then another message. Your mother anticipated this. I stared at that line for a long time. Not surprised, just confirmed. Sunday dinner was Danielle's masterpiece. She had been building toward it all week, and now she had an audience. The entire family was there. My grandmother at the head of the table, my father beside her, Danielle across from me, watching, waiting. Everything was normal for exactly 11 minutes. Then she set her fork down, pressed a napkin to her lips, and began. I've tried so hard with Alina, she said softly. The room shifted instantly. She's been through a lot, I understand that. Losing her mother, adjusting to a new home. She paused. Perfect timing. But she refuses to be part of this family. There it was. The narrative package delivered. My aunt leaned forward. What do you mean? Danielle sighed. She's sitting on money her mother left her while we're struggling to keep things together. And she won't help, not even a little. All eyes turned to me, not curious, judging. My father didn't speak. He just sat there, letting it happen. That hurt more than anything else. Is that true? My grandmother asked. I met her gaze. It's in a trust. I don't control it. That's not what your stepmother said. Of course it wasn't, because truth wasn't useful to her. Danielle shook her head like she was disappointed in me. You could at least try, Alina. I set my fork down, carefully, deliberately. You tried, I said quietly. The room froze. Her expression shifted, just slightly. What do you mean? She asked. I held her gaze. You called the bank, pretended to be my legal guardian. Silence. Not normal silence. The kind that makes people stop breathing. My father turned to her slowly. You did what? Danielle didn't answer immediately. That was her first mistake because hesitation looks like guilt. It was just an inquiry, she said finally, but the damage was done. I leaned back in my chair, calm, controlled. I have proof. Now the silence got heavier. My grandmother's hand tightened around her fork. My aunt looked between us, trying to figure out what was real. Danielle's voice sharpened. You went through my things? No, I said. The bank sent it. That was the moment her control slipped. Just for a second, but I saw it, and so did everyone else. My uncle, who hadn't said a word all night, finally spoke. Did you try to access her trust without permission? Direct? Clear? No emotion? Danielle opened her mouth, closed it, then forced a smile. It's being blown out of proportion, but no one laughed. My father leaned back in his chair, and for the first time, he looked unsure. The conversation shifted after that. Awkward, unstable, no one knew where to stand anymore. The narrative Danielle built cracked. Outside after dinner, I stood near the driveway waiting for my ride. My uncle followed me out. You handled that well, he said. I shrugged slightly. I didn't do anything. You didn't react, he corrected. That's not the same thing. He studied me for a moment. Listen carefully. If your mother set this up properly, and it sounds like she did, no one can touch it. Not legally. I know. Good. Then don't sign anything. Ever. I won't. He nodded once, then walked away. That night, Danielle didn't yell, didn't argue, didn't even look at me. And that's when I knew she was planning something else. 2 days later, she made her final move. I was in my room when Sophie knocked. She never knocked. That alone told me something was wrong. She stepped inside slowly, didn't sit, didn't look at me. My mom told me to talk to you, she said. Of course she did. What about? She hesitated, then said it. If you don't help, I might not be able to go to college. There it was. Emotional pressure weaponized. I looked at her, not angry, not defensive, just honest. That's not your fault, I said. Her eyes filled slightly. I know, she whispered. I just had to say it. And then she left. 30 seconds later, Danielle appeared, right on time, like she'd been waiting. You see what you're doing, she snapped. You're ruining her future. I stood up slowly and walked toward her, not aggressively, but not backing down either. You tried to steal from me, I said quietly. Her eyes narrowed. Careful. No, I said. You should be. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. Do you really think you can win this? That's when I smiled, not because I was confident, but because she still didn't understand. This was never her game. Tuesday, I said. What about Tuesday? You'll find out. And as she stood there trying to read me, for the first time, she couldn't, because Tuesday was the day everything ended.
Tuesday morning didn't feel dramatic. No storm, no tension in the air. Just a quiet drive to Margaret Holloway's office with my aunt beside me, her hand resting lightly over mine like she already knew how this would end. We arrived 15 minutes early. Margaret was already waiting. Dressed in a dark blazer, files neatly arranged in front of her. Prepared. Not nervous, not rushed, just ready. Are you okay? She asked me. Yes. That was the truth. For the first time since my mother died, I actually was. They arrived exactly on time. My father walked in first. Danielle right behind him. Confident, composed. Carrying a folder thick with printed documents like she was about to win something. That was her mistake. She thought this was a negotiation. It wasn't. We sat across from each other, 4 people, 1 table, and one truth that only 2 of us understood. Margaret folded her hands. I'll keep this simple, she said. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. The trust established by Evelyn Carter is irrevocable. That means it cannot be altered, redirected, or accessed by anyone other than the beneficiary under the conditions specified. Danielle leaned forward immediately. But Richard is her father. He has rights. Margaret didn't even look at her. Not here. That was the first crack. My father shifted in his seat. Evelyn never told me about this. Margaret finally looked at him. She wasn't required to. That one hit harder than anything else, because it wasn't emotional, it was factual, and facts don't argue. Danielle opened her folder quickly. We've done our research. There are ways to petition for financial oversight. Margaret raised a hand slightly, not aggressive, just enough to stop her. You already tried that. Silence. Margaret reached into her file, pulled out a document, set it on the table. The bank reported an unauthorized access attempt. The caller identified herself as Danielle Carter, claiming to be legal guardian. Danielle's face changed, not dramatically, but enough for everyone to see. My father turned toward her slowly. You said you were just asking questions. I was... No, Margaret interrupted gently. You were attempting access under false authority. The room shifted, again, but this time, deeper. This is a federal offense, Margaret continued. I'm choosing not to pursue it further at this time, but the documentation exists. Danielle didn't speak. For the first time since I met her, she had nothing to say. My father leaned back, ran his hand over his face, and I watched something inside him begin to crack. Not completely, but enough. Margaret closed the file slowly. That concludes the legal portion. Then she looked at me, a small nod. It was time. I reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope, the one my mother left, the one meant for him, and placed it on the table. My father stared at it, like it was something dangerous. What is this? It's from Mom. His hands didn't move. I don't need... You do, I said quietly. And this time, he didn't argue. Margaret opened the letter, unfolded it carefully, and began to read. Richard, if you're hearing this, then something I feared has already happened. The room went still. Even Danielle didn't move. I don't hate you. That line surprised him. I saw it. He wasn't expecting kindness, but I understand you. Margaret's voice didn't change, didn't soften, didn't sharpen, just steady. You were never cruel, just weak. My father's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. And weakness, when it matters most, can hurt more than cruelty ever could. That landed, hard. I know you'll move on. I know someone else will step into your life, and I know she will look at what I built and see opportunity. Danielle shifted slightly, just enough. And I know you'll convince yourself that sharing is the right thing. Margaret paused, just for a second, then continued, because it's easier than standing up for your daughter. My father made a sound, not loud, but real. I used to think you avoided conflict because you were kind. Another pause. I was wrong. You avoided it because you were afraid. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. I'm not writing this to punish you. I'm writing this because our daughter deserves better than what you've been willing to give. Margaret turned the page. Final paragraph. I couldn't make you stronger, but I could make sure she didn't have to rely on you. That's what the trust is, not money. Protection. And then, the line that ended everything. There's one condition you don't know about. Margaret stopped, looked up, then continued slowly. If anyone attempts to access, pressure, manipulate, or interfere with this trust, the beneficiary will gain full control immediately. Silence. No one moved. No one breathed. My father looked at me, confused. What does that mean? I held his gaze. It means I already have full control. Danielle's chair scraped against the floor. What? Her voice cracked, not controlled anymore. Margaret closed the letter. It's called a protective acceleration clause. Your attempt to access the trust triggered it. She looked directly at Danielle. Congratulations, you activated the very thing you were trying to prevent. That was it. That was the moment. Everything she planned, everything she calculated, collapsed. My father stared at the table, at the letter, at nothing. I didn't know, he whispered. Yes, I said quietly, you did. Because deep down, he always knew. Danielle stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. But it didn't sound powerful anymore. It sounded desperate. She grabbed her folder, walked out. No performance, no control, just gone. The door closed, and for the first time, it was just me and him. My father sat there, hands shaking slightly, eyes red. I didn't think she would. I didn't think you would. You didn't think at all, I said. Not angry, just honest. He nodded slowly, because there was nothing left to argue. I'm not fighting you, I continued, but I'm not staying either. He looked up, panic for the first time. Where will you go? That's not your concern anymore. And that hurt him, I saw it, because now he understood what he lost. I can fix this, he said weakly. No, I replied, you can't. Because some things don't break suddenly. They wear down slowly until there's nothing left to repair. I stood up, picked up my bag, and walked toward the door. Alina, I stopped, but I didn't turn. I'm sorry. 3 words, late but real. I closed my eyes for a second, then said, I know, and walked out. I didn't slam the door, didn't look back, didn't say anything else, because I didn't need to. Some endings don't need noise, they need clarity. My mother didn't fight them, she didn't argue, she didn't beg, she planned. She built something they couldn't touch, a system, a boundary, a future. And in the end, she didn't just protect me, she taught me how to protect myself. I'm 18 now. I have full control of my trust, my own place, my own life. And something far more valuable than money, I have my mother's strength. If you've ever had someone try to take what was yours, remember this. You don't always win by fighting louder. Sometimes you win by being prepared before the fight even begins. That's my story. And if you made it this far, you already understand why it mattered.